From Lodo Wellness. It's a marijuana dispensary here in Colorado. You can see the marijuana leaf on the Colorado flag here. We figured this would be a good place to talk about all of the recreational marijuana initiatives that are on the ballot around the country today. 5 states are considering adding, or voters will decide whether or not to allow recreational marijuana in their states. California, Nevada, Arizona, Massachusetts, and there's one more, Maine, of course. So then there are a few more. Florida, Arkansas, North Dakota, and even Montana are weighing medical marijuana initiatives this election. So we wanted to come down here to the Lodo Wellness Center in Denver. Don Andrews is the owner, and just talk a little bit about these initiatives. I mean, what do you think that all these states now have this on the ballot today? It's spreading.
Well, I think it's about time. This is something that should have happened years ago. Colorado, I think, has set a great example for the nation on how we regulate and do things responsibly and legally here. And I know that the majority of the state, I think, is supportive of this, and we hope that everybody gets out and vote, and also vote and support those initiatives in the state that they have.
Tell me a little bit about your shop here. You do medical and recreational marijuana, right?
We do both. We've had a medical license since 2009, and we were the 3rd license in the city of Denver to sell recreational, and we're open at 8 a.m. on January 1st, 2014.
Okay, so for somebody who's never been in a dispensary before, tell me a little bit about what these products are, what you can get here, how much, what does it cost, that sort of thing.
Well, the price ranges, but we have a variety of tinctures and edibles and salves and CBD specific and some combinations, THC, CBDs.
So basically, explain what that is, because it means that you're not necessarily smoking marijuana. You have a lot of different ways to get the effects of it.
Yes, we have a lot of our customers are using the marijuana products for pain management. We have CBD that is for sale in a variety of forms that has no THC in it at all. And we have edibles and beverages and candies and hashish and shatter, etc. So we have a wide variety, including the standard marijuana buds that you hear and are familiar with.
Okay. Now, all of this stuff is allowed to be sold here in Colorado.
Correct.
But at the federal level, technically, the federal government still considers marijuana illegal. And I'm wondering if you could tell me a little bit about some of the headaches that has created for you. I mean, for example, banks are federally regulated. So a lot of them say they can't, they don't want to be involved, or maybe they do because of all the money involved, but they can't be involved in the marijuana business right now. So what kind of headaches has that created for you as a business owner?
Well, it's just the logistics are very difficult sometimes. We deal with a lot of cash. We have now a place where we do some banking, but a lot of facilities do not have that. But we've had to deal with a substantial amount of cash over the years and paying our taxes on the state and federal level.
All in cash?
With $20 bills and up to several $100,000 at a time.
In like big duffel bags or what? You just show up with?
No, a small briefcase will carry quite a bit of money.
Okay.
So we do that. I think that's loosening up. The biggest issue on the federal level is the way they tax in the 280E rule. If people are not familiar with that, we do not get the ordinary expenses that any other business would get. And so we might have the pleasure of spending $1 million on service that we provide, but we cannot deduct that.
So am I clear then? The federal government considers this business illegal technically, but they'll still take your tax money?
Absolutely, and they even have an outline that's available to follow when you're paying your taxes as a medical or retail marijuana dispensary.
Okay. If a lot of these states pass these initiatives today, and there's a good indication that they will, there's been a lot of talk that the federal government will be forced to act, because you'll have a huge number of people in this country that live in a state with legal marijuana in some form. So to talk a little bit about that, I'd like to bring in Taylor West, who is with the National Cannabis Industry Association, who follows this. You guys work at all levels to try and change the law. Tell me Tell me what you see out there today. What do you think is going to happen?
Absolutely. It is going to be a huge day for the cannabis industry and for marijuana policy overall. We're seeing very good polling numbers in California, which, as a lot of people know, is the 6th largest economy in the world. It's also the most populous state in the country.
Right.
When just that one state becomes a state with a legal regulated cannabis program, that alone puts a lot of pressure on Congress and the federal government to act. In addition to
Why?
that, well, you're talking about a significant increase in the number of members of Congress for
Right.
whom these issues are now extremely important. When you have 60% of the country living in a state that has a regulated marijuana program, whether medical or adult use, Congress can't just keep putting their heads in the sand about it.
Right.
This conflict between federal and state law is not sustainable, and I think this election will really drive that home to folks in D.C.
How big of an industry is this right now? What are the prospects for the future of how big this industry will get, the economic impact?
Sure. Right now we're looking at an industry that's worth almost $3 billion nationwide. If all of these initiatives were to pass and we give them a few years to get up and running, we could be looking easily at a $20 billion industry in 5 years. This is not some small cottage industry. This is
Right.
something that is having a huge economic impact in the states. We had a report just recently showing that the Colorado cannabis industry has been
Right.
responsible for 18,000 new jobs in the state of Colorado alone. So this is not a small thing. These are huge impacts for the states, and the federal government needs to respond.
Okay. Before we go on, I want to remind people, if you're watching us on Facebook Live and you'd like to ask a question of either Don or Taylor here, you can leave a question in the comments. Producer Carol over there is monitoring our questions, and we'll try and get them in before the end here. You have any?
Mostly I'm hearing from people who either want marijuana in their state or don't. Hearing from Kansas City, Maine, Texas, Florida. Of course, in California, it's a big deal. But right now, people seem to know whether they want it or not. So no questions. But there are some people in Colorado saying they don't like marijuana here because they can smell it everywhere they go, including the hiking trails.
Yeah. And you are dealing with the federal government. I mean, just this summer, they said we're not going to reschedule marijuana, and we should probably explain what that is. So the drug marijuana falls into is considered a Category 1
That's
drug,
right.
which means the federal government does not consider it to have any medical use, and that it's very addictive. It's in the same category. I think it's like heroin and LSD.
Correct.
Right. So how do you? I mean, there's still a very strong resistance to marijuana in this country, in some quarters. How do you convince people? How do you convince the federal government? How do you convince people otherwise?
Well, the interesting thing is the people are not the ones who need to be convinced. We've had multiple national polls in the last month showing that significantly more than 50% of the nation is in support of full legalization of marijuana. Those numbers are around 57 to 60% at this point. So voters are on board with the idea that this is a smarter way to handle this product. The people who are lagging behind are the elected officials, and that can only go so much longer. These members of Congress are going to see that public opinion and the science behind the relative safety and the benefits of marijuana are in support of changing these policies. That's how we get change. It's happening slower than I think a lot of people would like, but it's inspiring to see the states making these moves even as Congress lags behind.
And there is a lot of money involved. I mean, I think in the first half of 2016 here in Colorado, it was something like $600 million in sales, and they expect it to break a record even by the end of the year. So
Sure, and that's generating a lot of tax revenue for the state as well. We saw about $113 million in tax revenue for the state of Colorado. We're expecting 140 or more next year. This is a way that bringing this business out of the shadows, out of the criminal enterprise, and putting it behind a regulated counter really benefits society as a whole.
And tell me again, if all of these initiatives were to pass today, how many people in this country would be living in a state with legal marijuana?
I should know the exact number. I can tell you it would be about 60% of the U.S.
60%
population.
of the US
62 if every single initiative were to pass. But even if only California and Florida were to pass, that alone would mean that 60% of the U.S. population would live in a state with a regulated marijuana market.
Okay, Don?
We
We have one question. We're going to go to producer Carol here, who's watching on Facebook.
How do you feel about the negative ads that have been coming out about Colorado in Arizona? In Arizona, they have some pretty negative ads. How do you feel about it?
That's right. You've had some pretty prominent ex-politicians here in Colorado, former governors and mayors, appearing in commercials in Arizona saying, don't do this, we made a mistake.
Yeah, you know, it was unfortunate because those ads repeated a lot of untrue claims about Colorado. And in fact, were so false that members of the Colorado legislature actually sent a letter asking for those ads to be taken down because they were repeating claims that weren't true about Colorado. It was disappointing to see some folks that I have a lot of respect for repeating claims that simply didn't have the facts to back them up. I think if you look at public opinion in Colorado, you can see, as Don mentioned earlier, that people have by and large felt that this was a success, and I think we've seen that from the results of the program.
Okay. I want to thank you both for joining us. Before we go, Don, you guys are running a special today. Can you show me what that is?
Yeah,
over here? Is it over here?
Today it's Presidential Kush.
Presidential
Our special,
Kush.
Yes.
Now, what is
and
that?
It's marijuana.
This one right here?
It's an indica, and
There you go.
this is the Presidential Kush. Unfortunately, we've been selling a lot of it lately, but we think it's appropriate to have that today on our special.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for having us in today, and we will see you guys later. Thanks for joining us here on Facebook Live. Go out and vote. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks.
Thank you.